The late 1970s and early 1980s were the wild west of home computing, a vibrant, chaotic, and exciting era that laid the groundwork for the personal computing revolution that would follow. What had once been the domain of hobbyists and large corporations was quickly becoming more accessible to the ordinary folks. The invention and popularization of microprocessors, particularly the Intel 8080 and MOS 6502, made it possible to build small, affordable personal computers for home use. This was also the era when Apple II, Commodore 64, and IBM PC thrived on the scene. These machines solidified the idea that computing wasn't just for business, it was for everyone. While Apple and IBM rapidly grew during this period, you may be wondering, what was Microsoft up to during these days? Well, not that much. Remember BASIC or even Xenix, their first operating system? They were mainly involved in that up until 1981, when they were approached by IBM to create the now well-known MS-DOS operating system. And that's it. The video ends here. Or so you thought. Well, we're going to explore the forgotten part of Microsoft that started all the way back in 1978. That year marked a significant shift at Microsoft. They were beginning to transition from a small, scrappy software vendor into a global tech powerhouse. Microsoft's influence stemmed largely from its software development, particularly programming languages and operating systems. Windows had not yet arrived, and the world of personal computing was still fragmented, with countless hardware platforms and little in the way of standardization. Microsoft saw itself not just as a software supplier, but increasingly as a company capable of shaping the direction of computing. Recognizing the limitations of focusing solely on the American market, Microsoft made a major move just 3 years after its founding by expanding their presence internationally. That year, in 1978, they opened their first international office in Japan, marking a significant milestone in the company's early expansion. The primary reason for this international leap was opportunity. During the late 1970s, Japan was rapidly becoming a global hub for consumer electronics and emerging computer technologies. Japanese companies like NEC, Fujitsu, and Sharp were beginning to produce personal computers and needed reliable software, particularly programming languages like Microsoft BASIC, which at the time was already very popular on the US market. In Japan, Microsoft saw the demand and acted swiftly. The company partnered with ASCII Corporation, a Japanese publishing and software company, to form ASCII Microsoft. This joint venture allowed Microsoft not to only provide software for Japan's burgeoning PC market, but also gain a foothold in Asia's tech industry early on. Kazuhiko Nishi, a brilliant and ambitious executive at ASCII, played a key role in the formation of ASCII Microsoft. As a close collaborator with Bill Gates, Nishi acted as a bridge between the Japanese electronics industry and Microsoft's software expertise. He had a deep understanding of both the technological challenges facing the Japanese market and the business opportunities they presented. Microsoft saw an opportunity here, not just to sell software, but to help define a common platform that could unite the industry. The idea that emerged from this collaboration was something bold, a standardized home computer platform known as MSX. The name either stood for Machines with Software Exchangeability or Microsoft Extended Basic, or it was named after the MX missile. The central idea was to create a hardware and software standard that manufacturers could adopt, allowing various companies to produce machines that all ran the same software and used the same peripherals. For Microsoft and ASCII, it was a way to bring order to a chaotic market, and for hardware makers, it was a chance to align themselves with a platform backed by a powerful and increasingly influential American software company. MSX was not a computer made by Microsoft, but rather a set of guidelines, a blueprint for a unified computing experience. Companies like Sony, Panasonic, Yamaha, Toshiba, and many others adopted the MSX standard and began producing compatible machines. Under the hood, these machines typically use the Zilog Z80 processor, a popular and affordable 8-bit CPU at the time, and came with core features such as Microsoft BASIC, a familiar environment for developers and users alike, memory structure, graphics and sound capabilities, and I/O design. For Microsoft, this meant its software would be deeply integrated into a wide array of machines, securing its influence in one of the most competitive and innovative tech markets of the time. This strategy stood in contrast to Microsoft's approach in the US, which remained largely focused on software licensing for various platforms rather than pushing a full-fledged hardware standard. In Japan, however, The fragmented market conditions made MSX not only viable but potentially revolutionary. It allowed Microsoft to become more than just a software vendor. It became an architect of a computing ecosystem, and unlike Apple, which controlled both hardware and software, Microsoft was enabling third parties to thrive under a common standard, echoing a philosophy it would later use to dominate the PC market with Windows. Was MSX a true success story? Well, kind of. It was definitely a regional success story rather than a global phenomenon. In Japan, it certainly fulfilled much of its original promise. It brought coherence to the home computing market, made development easier for software creators, and helped popularize personal computing among ordinary people. Schools, homes, and even businesses adopted MSX machines for both educational and entertainment purposes. Beyond Japan, MSX found unexpected popularity in countries where Western computing platforms had not yet established a strong foothold. This included Brazil, the Soviet Union, South Korea, and surprisingly, even the Netherlands, thanks to effective local marketing and early adoption in education. In these regions, the MSX standard made it easier to import, build, or license affordable computers that could run a shared library of software. However, MSX was not a major success in the West, particularly in the United States and the UK, where the market was already dominated by platforms that I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the Apple II, Commodore 64, and IBM PC. By the time MSX made its debut in 1983, American and British consumers had already committed to these systems, and MSX failed to distinguish itself. Despite the fact it was not a major success story in the West, it still played a vital role in the evolution of video games. A wide variety of games were developed for the platform, including early titles for now legendary Japanese studios. Konami and Hudson Soft in particular flourished on the MSX, producing titles like Metal Gear, Penguin Adventure, and Nightmare. These games not only entertained people, but also helped define early gaming mechanics and storytelling in a pre-console world. In many ways, MSX was a console before consoles. It was cheap, standardized, easy to use, and perfectly suited for both learning and play. With cartridge support, joystick compatibility, and vibrant pixel art, MSX systems often blurred the lines between home computer and gaming console. MSX also left a significant cultural legacy in Japan, where it helped define an era of accessible computing and catalyzed the growth of a native software and gaming industry. For many young developers and gamers in the 1980s, MSX was their first real encounter with programming, game design, and digital storytelling. Following the success of the original MSX, Microsoft and ASCII introduced a series of upgrades to keep the platform relevant in a fast-evolving market. The MSX2, released in 1985, offered enhanced graphics, more memory, and improved audio capabilities. It quickly became the dominant MSX model in Japan and further solidified the platform's role in gaming and educational use. In 1988, the MSX2 Plus followed, which added more advanced video modes, smoother scrolling, and hardware improvements that catered to game developers pushing the system's limits. By 1990, the final iteration, the MSX Turbo R, arrived with a new R800 CPU that provided a significant performance leap. Despite its raw power and backward compatibility, Turbo R came too late and was only produced in limited quantities. By the early 1990s, MSX was facing competition it couldn't outpace. Personal computers based on IBM's architecture were becoming more affordable, powerful, and globally dominant. At the same time, Microsoft has shifted its focus toward Windows and its lucrative partnership with IBM in the PC market. With Windows becoming a standard for business and home users alike, there was little incentive for Microsoft to continue supporting a niche standard like MSX, especially one that was heavily regional. The development of Windows 3.0 in 1990, followed by the rapid success of Windows 95 later on, signaled a new era in personal computing, one where MSX no longer fit. As a result, Microsoft quietly distanced itself from the MSX project, leaving ASCII to maintain it alone in its final years. The MSX was indeed a revolutionary computer platform that arrived at a time when the idea of a standardized, affordable, entertainment-focused home machine was still novel. Before home consoles like the NES and Sega Master System took over living rooms, MSX offered a versatile experience that combined education, programming, and gaming in one accessible package. Though its dominance faded with the rise of PCs and dedicated consoles, the MSX remains alive in the retro community, preserved by hobbyists, collectors, and developers who continue to create it today. Microsoft's involvement, while foundational, is often overlooked in the broader narrative of its history. Yet, MSX was a rare moment when Microsoft didn't just write software for someone else's hardware, it helped shape the very direction of an entire computing ecosystem. And that's all for today. MSX is definitely something that is overlooked these days, and I wish it was not the case, but it was a really unique computer and game console, sort of. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.